Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show, where we celebrate the power of words and the beauty of storytelling. Join us on this journey as we delve into the minds of successful authors and small business owners who have mastered the art of crafting captivating narratives that inspire, educate, and entertain. Prepare to be inspired as we explore the boundless possibilities that come from sharing stories and experiences that shape our lives and ignite our passions. Through heartfelt conversations and insightful discussions, we uncover the wisdom and creativity that fuel these incredible individuals in their pursuit of greatness. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let the magic of storytelling transport you to new worlds and perspectives. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and uplifted as we embark on this storytelling journey together. Stay tuned for an episode filled with wisdom, inspiration, and the power of words. Welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Say where stories come alive. Let's begin this adventure together. Don't miss out on the opportunity to connect with some of the most talented and compelling voices in literature today. Tune in and let the journey begin.
Hello and welcome to the Hollis Chapman Show. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're staying dry. He's written a new book, Time Management Inverted. Time management. You know, a lot of us lack that, the time management. You know, we procrastinate, we put things off, and all of a sudden you're running behind. Time management is very important. So time management is very, very important. So one of the questions that he has on his bios, what was the breaking point or realization that made you say, traditional time management is backwards? Traditional time management is backwards. And how did that become time management inverted? Why is time management today backwards? You know, what is AI and the technology doing to make time management a little different, a little difficult? What's it doing? Our special guest today is a founder of 365 Vision brand and developer of Time Management Inverted Framework. So we're really going to hit that time management inverted. I really like that. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show. Our special guest, Ron Liebeck. Hi, Ron. How you doing, sir?
Good. How you doing? Pleased to meet you.
Well. Nice meeting you. Thank you for coming on. So tell us a bit more about yourself and your book, Time Management Inverted, because that's a powerful subject. Tell us more about yourself.
Well, the big thing with me is I have a huge passion for doing a lot of different things, and I'm always trying to crunch time down to the most productive way possible. And I've, tried to figure out the system over the last 2 or 3 decades, and then finally it came to fruition, but basically by accident when I launched my my marketing agency back in 2017, Content Mentor. And then all of a sudden, I started scoping this project together, and all I want to do was share it because I have a passion for sharing with other people. Like, okay, here's how to get the most productivity out of your life, so you could have more time to basically screw around, as I call it. Enjoy what you're doing, even if that's launching another business or, doing whatever you can do for your company or, your spouse, whatever it takes. So basically the time management inverted system, it inverts the concept of time because we can't control time, but we can control our focus. So it's all about intentional focus for productivity. So that's what I try to show people. So you don't start with your day-to-day, you start with your basically like Simon Sinek's why. And then you take that and you invert the whole pyramid down, and it goes from days to goals to tactics to task. And then, you always have that little section for realignment, as I call it. So starting down and going to your day to day.
Outstanding. Are you an early riser? Do you tell people to get up early, get their day started and stuff like that, and get your day planned out? Is that helps you become a better time management person and go from there?
I believe I'm up every day by like 5:30, so that's my big thing. And I'm a big another believer of Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. So I get up early. I do my reading by myself before I have an 11-year-old son, Enzo, who when he awakes, the whole world goes to crap in a good way,
Yeah.
But it's we my wife, I got her doing it too, but wake up and get everything disciplined and organized. And I actually plan my whole month is planned out at the beginning of the month.
Wow.
And then on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, I plan out the whole week, the big 3 to 5, as I call them. And then every morning I review what I have going on in that schedule. And if nothing had a pivot, I keep with that, I don't have to realign for anything.
Outstanding. What was a breaking point, a realization that made you say traditional time management is backwards? What was your breaking point?
There was a few of them, but the big one was back in 2008. I took kind of a nervous breakdown because I was doing way too much stuff. I was trying to achieve too much. Music was part of it. Motorcycles were part of it. I was just getting out of, I worked as a UPS driver for 13 years. And at that time, I was like, I had to just pivot, and I was trying to do too much, and it totally just, I woke up like 3 days later not understanding what happened. And that's when I had to step back. I was like, all right, I have to figure out how to manage my time. But then it turned into, obviously, managing my productivity and my focus. So that was a big thing.
Outstanding. Your new book, Time Management Inverted. Okay, what was the point where you said, okay, I want to write this book? Were you planning it, or was it something that you sit there and just said, oh, wow, I got to write a book about this?
It's been in my mind for a while, and never, the concept and framework was always there developing, but it took me a good probably 10 years of really, putting the system to test myself. So I just kept working on it, and I'm like, okay, once I get comfortable with it, I'll feel like I could share with other people. So then I started tossing the idea off other entrepreneurs and, friends, and, I just kept growing it from there. But it was a point where I saw what I was doing with my businesses, plus book writing, plus still involved in the motorcycle industry, plus having supper with my family every day at 5. So I was like, okay, I could share some valuable lessons here. So just do it. I was a little too worried about perfecting it in the beginning, and that's another thing I learned. Don't worry about perfection. Get it out there. They'll perfect it for you.
Oh, that's great. Okay, you are a high achiever. A lot of high achievers, okay, treat downtime like a reward. You argue it is part of the productivity system that itself. So let's kind of explain that, because sometimes when you get downtime, you feel guilty. But you're saying the opposite. You're saying, no, downtime is good. Put yourself in a good place, kind of relax, maybe do what you got to do, read, some of that. So talk more about that and really explain it, because I think a lot of people got to hear that. Because a lot of people feel guilty by having downtime, where they should.
Yeah, I was 100% part of that whole, I always thought if I'm not on the go 24/7, I'm not productive. But then you're doing half of the quality of work that you could do. So one of my biggest things is, like, every Wednesday night religiously, I go off the grid at 5 o'clock. I either go up by a trout stream, I ride motorcycle somewhere. I don't bring a phone with me. I just stay totally off the grid. And that recharges me, and I try to do the same thing on Sundays. And then every day throughout the day, I have these period breaks where it's like, okay, anything I'm working on, like if I'm working on, co-authoring a book or ghostwriting a book or content strategy for one of my content mentor clients, I'll just take a step back and totally try to do something that's so opposite that it makes me forget about it. And then when I come back, it's refreshed thoughts. And one of the ways I do that, I'm like a big motorcycle guy, and I take my lunch breaks, because I do like 24-hour fast every day during the week for a lot. Yeah, so it's like, I, instead of doing lunch like traditional, I go for a really, enjoyable, spirited, as we say. I don't like to say fast, but if you don't focus on what you're doing, you could get hurt. So it forces you to forget about, your workflow for that little bit of time.
Very good.
And it keeps it fresh.
I know a gentleman who works, he puts 60, 70 hours a week in, and I really try in a subtle way, say, guy, you got to take some time off. You really got to step away, but I don't know what he thinks, but he's sitting there, well, I got to be here. I got to be here. I got to be here. And then you can tell he's getting kind of burnt out because he snaps at people. He gets, get really quickie with you, stuff like that. So how do you talk to a person who is just putting too much time in? So take some time off. Is there some way we, as another manager or another person who's kind of friends with people, how to subtly say it without offending them, but they can sit there and say, yeah, maybe you're right. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I just put it into, like, you're always out there, especially high achievers, like you said, and people that are working all the time. They're trying to produce the most quality work they possibly can. So if you could convince them and show them through real world examples of like what other people are doing, that if you just take this, take 10 hours out that week and do something relaxing, it resets. And that moves into when I talk about like your creative units. That's a big chapter I have in there. And creative units, basically, I tell people like you have from 1 to 100. And if you use 20 of these from, doing something like, just doom scrolling, or if you're not productive here or there, like that's a big deal and it takes away from your project at hand. But at the same time, you want to get away from that project, and overworking yourself, you start making bad decisions. And like you said, your anxiety rises, and you're kind of forcing yourself to do something that your body's telling you not to, and you got to listen to both sides.
Outstanding. Yeah. You included AI prompts throughout the book. Very good. And again, you're one of the authors that appreciates that, because I use AI a lot. Explain why you like AI, and explain why we should kind of incorporate AI into what we do, growing a business, writing a book, whatever. Kind of talk about that, because again, a lot of authors, boy, they want to fight it. No. But you add it into your book. You add it into your business. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's AI. Like when it first started, it was like, okay, it takes away the creativity in a lot of people. Yeah. But now it's so good where we're starting to lose the creativity in people, because the people that are using it just for like writing, you don't use it for writing, you use it as a strategic partner, as I tell everybody. So it's like, let the machine do the hard work that's laborious, that you don't want to do, and then put all your time into your creativity. So even like outlining chapters and getting the time management inverted, the system. That's all, I sit down, pen and paper. I use Moleskines religiously. I mean, I have hundreds of these just filled out. They're little cheap books, and then I use my time management inverted planner. I create it, and I made that cheap too. I self-published it because it's just getting those notes down, getting your mental process to slow down with a physical writing. And that's a creativity that our world's going to need, because the machine could do the majority of the work that, it's not needed anymore. So, it's like, enhancing pieces online for AI, you got to use AI to do it. So it's changing the world for the better, I think. Anyway,
I think so too. Okay, real quick, I mean, this was from the questions I sent, but what do you see the vision of AI 5 years? What do you see in the future for AI and humans working together?
I just see if humans could adapt it properly. And like I said, like a strategic partner versus a do-all, end-all, and just for, I could say lazy people. People that are lazy are using AI the wrong way. And it's showing, and it actually gives, people like you and I that are like driving, trying to be the best entrepreneurs and trying to drive the most value possible. It gives us opportunities to take the people that are lazy and slackers, as I should say. I just watched Back to the Future yesterday. But, and then use AI as our mechanism to produce stuff faster, more quality, and then QA stuff too. So, but it can't be creative, as you know.
At this time, please tell us, where do we go after this show to learn more about you, your business, and buy your book? Where do we go?
My book's on Amazon, so that's all there. And the 365thevision.com is my main website. It's a consulting website based on the time management inverted framework that focuses on leadership, marketing, and sales teams. And then you could look me up on LinkedIn, just Ron Lieback on LinkedIn. And then also contentmender.com, which is my hyperlocal / hyper-focused lead gen agency that focuses on being found high in AI searches and traditional search.
Okay. Content Mender. Talk about that a little bit.
Content Mender is it started off as a content-driven digital marketing agency back in 2017, when high producers of good quality content were hard to find. And then we pivoted as AI came alive, and things started working well. I in clients themselves, I pivoted from working with bigger enterprise brands to more hyper local brands, as I call it. So we take them and make their brand authority stand out in their places where they should be, like their target market, and do that through content. Having the platform set up perfectly for SEO, technical side, and then getting them in AI searches. But it's all about building that brand story and getting them cited through other publications. So that's one of the biggest deals now, because our clients, they could, if you're just showing up in traditional search, it's no longer like the big thing. So you have to be cited in AI tools, and it's been a really tough journey. The last probably year has been the most, it's been madness for us. So it's like you have to be on top of everything, but at the same time, that's what we're figuring out the solution so our clients could focus on what they do best, which is running their business and building creative strategies to build their business, and let us take care of the marketing and get the story out there.
Yeah, I know you want to talk about your book more, but I got a client I want to work with. He owns here in Tempe. He owns a auto repair shop.
Okay.
I want to get more people in the door for him. I'm just real passionate about that. He's paid to do websites, stuff like that. But like you said, like an AI, it changes so fast. So it's like, holy smokes! What I told him a month ago is already just like, oh, we got to do something a little different. Give me a little game plan. What I can do to help him get people through the door for the future, stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I'll do behind the scenes stuff, and I'll do like you said, SEO is a little different now too. Google's changing things now with that. Give me a little game plan, how Hollis can help this auto repair shop keep getting business in the door. How can I do it?
All right. Well, I mean, we always tell people to start with their Google business profile.
Okay.
First of all, hopefully he has one that's established, and getting your reviews and the concepts of, like, if you're doing transmission repair, when he's getting a review, he wants that person to mention, they did transmission service on so we provide a strategy for reviews, and getting those words within our reviews helps get cited, builds trust and authority. So you got to build the reviews up. The whole Google business profile is to be fully optimized, personal pictures from the business. So that's all stuff you can find everywhere. And then pricing, within the services, even if there are a range of pricing, Google likes to see that. But also now everything that's happening there is coming into all the AI overviews, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, so that's where you want to really have your clients set up. So then you have to match that with a website, which we think is very important still. It's like, it used to be the top of the totem pole. Now it's kind of like, it's in the mid, but you still need the strong content there. You got to put out localized content, have service pages for I have, I used to help out an auto glass company, and they were on Wookspear. So we started with optimizing a Wookspear page, built content around that. And then another big thing for trust factors is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, we believe, and Substacks even, brands, like back in the day, it was always like the brand. So it was like, like Content Mender was a brand, but now it's pivoting towards Ron Lieback driving Content Mender, because my voice, people trust that instead of the big entity, it's my entity personally. So people that own businesses have to be good at marketing themselves, or just get help with somebody like yourself to help them market themselves. So, take over their LinkedIn and get a newsletter out there for them, do posts at least 2 to 3 times a week that's adding value to them. And then you'll start seeing those filter through AI, and then they'll get cited by other people. And it's just building that relationship around the sole owner of the brand, or a team of owners, but as many as they can. That's where search is going. Where it used to be, again, like the brand, like Content Mender was the brand that people, now it's like more of like, okay, they're looking for Ron Lieback, or, that's what I have to do, is build my trust up for them. So,
yeah, I like that. Okay. Excuse me. With numerous books underneath your belt, how do you manage the mental load of juggling various writing projects? Okay, so you do your business, Content Mender, and then you write your book, stuff like that. How does Ron put it all in place so you can do it in a great way? There's just so many things going on in my mind. I kind of get confused myself. How does Ron do it? How do you put it in place in your company?
It's another thing of blocking the time for intentional focus. So I've become very proficient at, if I'm focused on, I'm putting out a motorcycle safety book, I can't be thinking about Content Mender or 365 Division, anything else in life. So, I'll block a big bunch of time for that. And when I'm doing big writing projects, I just finished the 2nd edition of my Modern Writer's Guide. That will be live probably by the end of August. And then I have a Routines and Rituals book I'm putting out. That's a follow-up to Time Management for it. And then my safety book. But I'll only block a certain amount of time. But I do work on them sporadically, throughout the year. But then when I'm okay, it's go time, the only focus is the one book. So then you could really crunch down 4, 5, 6 months of work into a month. And if you're using AI proficiently, That's another thing too that will help dramatically improve, the strategic part, like the editorial part, questioning yourself, building prompts. So it's like, okay, why is this not the best I'm ever going to read?
You ground things very well, but sometimes we get a setback, especially in the realms of personal development and productivity. What key piece of advice would you give others to help them voice their message and get over that setback? How do Hollis is trying to work with a couple people, all of a sudden it didn't work out, the client's not happy, I got to go home and refocus. How do I get over that?
This happened to me over and over in business, but when I have a client, I used to let it, like I just had one a few weeks ago that, I had to let go because they were driving me nuts. And I was like, why am I still focused? Because I'm always trying to give the most I could. But then I looked at, the profitability was good. But then I looked at, I'm like, when I'm dying, am I going to be thinking about this client on my deathbed? And if they're that important, there's gonna be more clients coming in. So, sometimes it's like, because you spend so much time. I know you spend so much work building a business, building clientele, keeping the respect high, and giving them all the value you could. But sometimes they're like, well, what are you even doing? And they're like, oh,
yeah,
here, and then it's like, okay, and we have everything documented, like down to it's like, here's this and here's this and here's this, just from a task related and then the strategy related. And sometimes but my biggest issue is I always front load it, a lot of work for clients. And then I was like, this is going to take, a couple months to pan out because we need to get you here, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like I front loaded all this work in my team. And then I'm like, they just leave, so it happened often and often, but just go home and really think about it. It's not the end of the world. I mean, I lost one of our biggest clients in the automobile space last year, and it was a ginormous hit to the bottom line, and it hurt tremendously. But at the point I was like, I was working through some other things with my other books. And I was like, wait a minute, I wrote about this. So I started paying attention to my strategy of realigning, pivoting, especially for your mental, because, again, I took a breakdown once and I don't want to ever do that again, so.
Yeah. When do you know, as a business owner or creator, to let a client go? I think it's easier just to sit there and say, okay, we got to go separate ways. A couple years ago, I let a client go because every other day he'd say, oh, Hollis, try this. Oh, Hollis, try this. It's like, dude, will you stop? You're driving me crazy with all those changes and this and this.
You'll feel it in your gut, I think. If it's you go home, like this is my thing, like this client a few weeks ago, I woke up like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And the first thing in my head, that's a doom period for your brain because it's dumping everything, all the bad energy is leaving. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, why am I thinking about this person? And then it goes on to the next thought. And I'm like, well, am I doing the right thing for this client, et cetera, et cetera. So if that client is keeping you up and it's keeping you away from adding value to others in your personal life, and it's not worth it. I mean, if it's a 500,000 client or a $5,000 a year client, like, it's not worth your time. Life's too precious for that,
Outstanding. Great conversation, sir. Hey, before we get to the final comment, please tell us again, where do we go after the show to learn more about you and buy your book? Where do we go?
365thevision.com. That's where, I have everything there. I actually have a page for the books, a few of the books I wrote, including some I co-wrote. And then Amazon, just search up Time Management Inverted. I have the book there, plus a planner that I said I self-did. I put it at the lowest price possible so people could just, it's not about money here. It's about people taking a strategy and actually implementing it instead of just reading a book. Because, of course, I read, hundreds of books. And sometimes I'm like, what do I remember from that? And then I'm rereading and I'm like, oh. So, we want to put them into play because if there's no action, nothing's going to happen.
Perfect. Our special guest today is Ron Lieback. His book, Time Management Inverted. In closing, Ron, your proof that the system works. What is the number one thing you should tell people to do to start becoming monster of productivity? In closing, what will you tell Hollis and other people watching to be more productive in the future?
I mean, the big thing for me is keeping the intentional focus on, like I said, like for a whole week, I'll take my big 3 to 5, as I call them, and that will be the focus for the week. And then every day will be only my big 3 to 5 that focus on those big 3 to 5 for the week. So you got to be so if you wake up on a Monday and you're going to do 20 different things, you're not going to give your full self to any of them. And then the second thing I think too is the downtime, which is dramatically like improved my life and a lot of other people's lives. Because again, entrepreneurs working 60, 80 hours a week, it burns us out. So it's like you got to take that time back, figure things out. You can't do everything yourself. I know, it's like a lot of entrepreneurs know that. And then the third thing I'm a huge believer in is, personal development with, like, I'm a big biohacker. Dave Asprey was one of my influences. Some of this stuff's a little out there, but I have respect for what he did for my mental, focus. And Vishen Lakhiani, a 6-phase meditation, huge deal for me. So like 20 minutes a day just to clear the head out. And that's when, too, if one of those clients come up that are driving you nuts, you'll forgive them in your meditation and then honestly let your body just release it. So there's a lot out there.
Ron, thank you so much for doing this today. We appreciate you. Keep doing the great stuff you do. We'll talk to you real soon. You have a great, great week. Come on back anytime, and good luck with all your books and your business. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, same with you. If you ever have any questions, you know where to find me.